It's Dan and James talking about the Villa games. Welcome back, everybody, to the Villa podcast, AVFC Faithful. Thought we'd try something new this week, James. James has not heard that rendition of our theme tune yet.
No, I was just told that you had something as a surprise for me, and it wasn't what I expected. I'm not going to lie, but when you're auditioning for X Factor,
Well, I wouldn't want to leave you in the lurch now, would I? It's on my mind, but it wouldn't be fair on you. Also, you'd have to change the theme tune then, because it wouldn't be Dan and James, and don't work
that's
really
true.
too well.
And I can't sing, so I probably wouldn't have a theme tune anymore.
Well, I can't take credit for it. That did come from my brother-in-law. I did give him the task of making one, and that's what he came up with. And I thought, oh, work.
That's every week now. You got to do that.
I might twist it up a bit. If we have a guest on, maybe they'll have to sing it instead.
Yeah.
How not to get guests on a podcast by Dan and James.
No one is touching this now.
No. Well, so obviously we're heading into the international break, so this is going to be probably a bit of a shorter episode than usual. But we're going to bring out a nice bit of extra content over the next week and a half for you guys, because we know what it's like. There's no football on. Gareth Southgate manages England, or maybe you're not even a fan of England. I mean, am I at this stage really? So, it's one of those weeks where I think you might be grateful for our voices. So, we'll get the pleasantries out of the way. So, James, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm very good. It's a good weekend, isn't it? How are you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, like last time we spoke when you went to a Villa game, obviously it was Stevenage. And I was like, I've never been happier to be sat home watching a game instead of a Villa Park. And then it got to 6 o'clock on Saturday. I went, I've never been unhappier to be sat on the sofa watching a Villa game and not a Villa Park. James had the fortunate venture down to Villa Park on Saturday, of course, as we mentioned last week. And we saw a drubbing, really. It was not a complete thrashing, but the type we've been waiting for, hasn't it? That type of game.
Yeah, it was. It could have been more, definitely. I mean, we'll not try and paint a picture that it was the perfect 90, but it was one of the best 90-minute performances that we've seen in a long, long time, defensively and offensively. So it was a really good game, and I think we all said that at some point soon it was going to all come together and we'd put a few past the team and not concede, and it was that on Saturday, and could have been more. Should have had one or two penalties. I didn't really see the second handball that they claimed for. I haven't seen any replays, but yeah, it was a good performance all around. I don't want to pick out anyone in general that had a bad performance. I think they all put in a good shift. So Bournemouth. It was just. Yeah, and their fans, which we'll get onto in a bit. But yeah, it was a pleasure to be there. I mean, I walked out of the ground and it was absolutely pouring down and I got drenched and I didn't care. I was sat in the car, soaked through, not bothered, buzzing, smiling. So yeah, a brilliant Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a fan, you get a bit of extra enjoyment when it's the players you particularly love that play that extra bit as well. And obviously, you're a massive fan of Douglas Luiz. I mean, they're not going to cover that up. You love a midfielder, don't you, James? Obviously, you got Kamara, which you're unfortunate not to see. I had this weird feeling for some reason that they were going to bring on Carlos just for you. But maybe they're saving him for me for the next time I go up, in which case you'll be waiting a very long time, Villa fans. No, it was enjoyable. It was it's one of those games where I really felt like a Premier League team and against a team that wasn't at our level. I mean, we played a couple games now, obviously against Palace, Everton, West Ham, teams that blow us, and it hasn't felt so clear cut. They've been good performances, but not like a level, and that showed the levels. Let's not be completely, overjoyed by it. There was 2 instances I think where Bournemouth should have scored, and in the first half particularly, Solanke changed from Mings to Konza and gave him a right run in for about 15 minutes. I think Konza woke up a bit, realised what he had, and it was neutralised, which I quite enjoyed watching, because as fans, we've obviously been looking at where does Konza, how does he move into the team, and when Carlos comes in, how does it change? And I think I like seeing I like it not being too obvious. And while obviously I think everyone sort of accepts it probably will be that way, it's nice knowing that it's not like, oh, we really need him back now. There's no rush, because it just means he gets more time. He's sat on the bench now. He's getting match day time. And Konza, again, I think he grew into the game, had a really good game as well. It's just, for him, unfortunate that Mings had such a good game, like such a good game for him. Cowie didn't score. I mean, even he said in his Instagram post that he's never scoring again. That one shot, I think you said you were already celebrating, weren't you?
I was, yeah. I agree on Mings. He was my man of the match personally. It was close between a few players for me. I think Cash was brilliant. I think Louise was excellent. Ramsey was back to his best in that game, but Mings was just pivotal defensively and playing forwards. I think recently, looking at some of the data that's coming out of like pass maps and progression, he's like right at the top for us between of progressive passes and dribbles, which that's going to happen because of how we play out from the back. And then Bournemouth, they didn't really press us too high. It was a bit of a half-assed press, to be honest. We had to work for it. So it was always going to be on Mings and Konsa to try and open up that first phase. And Mings was just excellent all game. Played some lovely balls into midfield and attack. And defensively, his reading of the game was really good. And I think it was almost never in doubt. You know, he turns up against Bournemouth, really, his former club. And when that chance fell to him, I literally was already dancing around. And I couldn't believe it hadn't gone in. And I bet he couldn't either. No. And then, I mean, his header might have even been going in from Buendia's goal before.
It looked like it.
It did, yes. I thought he was the one that scored, and like I'd started celebrating, thinking, "Oh, that's good for him." And then the bloke said, "Oh yeah, Emery Buendia," and I was like, "Huh?" I was a bit confused. But yeah, it was a really good game, all round game from everyone really. And Konsa, even though he was troubled a bit, as you say, by Solanke, they did target him, and Anthony, I think his name is, something like that, and they did try to target him behind him. But that's what we're going to sort of deal with that high line. And he did end up after a little shaky spell. I think he got back on top of the battle, and he did well playing into midfield as well. A bit more bravery than usual. So, but as you say, when Carlos is back, you can only imagine what effect that'll have on the team. You know, once he's reached a bit more match sharpness and fitness.
Yeah. So obviously, as you were talking about, I just want to pick into the bits of the four main players. Obviously, you got Cash, Mings. For me, it was Dougie, and then Jacob Ramsey was my next. I think not just his goal, but his overall play was just it was brilliant again. And obviously, I mentioned against West Ham that he grew into the game and it looked a bit not sloppy, but not his usual self. And I think he picked up on it, didn't he, after the game, saying that he's not been scoring the goals or assisting what he's expecting to be and what's probably expected of him. So to see him pick up his game, he was my second choice. By the way, it was. Douglas was my main choice, but again, that might be just a bit personal because I do really like watching him play football, and it's personal with him, but not in a bad way for once. Just talk about it, not be personal is great, but it was one of those games where you needed, because of the way Bournemouth set up and because of the way they attacked the game, we had to have those moments of magic, but not just moments, but a sustained pressure from players that could give it. And that's what Mings gives you by playing out from the back. Douglas Luiz gives you by making the forward runs into the box and playing the passes he does. And Jacob Ramsey does by making the banging run straight through that he does. And also just his general play. But again, you can't account for players like Emery Buendia jumping up and scoring headers as a team. And for Bournemouth there to look at that, they're probably like, oh, well, that was the third one. But for us, that's what I love seeing, because I tweeted about it after the game. That's what we need. I love seeing our goal scorers, our main ones, like Ollie Watkins, Ings when he was here, Jean Duran if he comes on, scoring. But you need to have those other players scoring. You need your Luiz's and your Kamaras to pick up a few. John McGinn's, Jacob Ramsey to score quite a few, and Emmy to score a few, and it just means that we're only going to grow as a team and go, because these big teams, that's what they have. They have players in every position that can score a goal, at least one a season in the back, a couple in the midfield, and obviously they're attackers. So seeing that on our side is something not totally brand new, but it's so much better than what it was. And poor Emery Buendia. I just saw that the stat today. He's had 2 times more progressive, is it through passes, creating chances than anyone else in our entire squad. And the bloke's he's got to be on, what is it, like 3 assists, I think, for the season. If that, like it's ridiculous. Yeah. I think Faithful tweeted out that it seems our attackers just forget how to run when they get the ball from him. It just all goes wrong. But it should, I mean, it's a mystery, isn't it, how a bloke that small can jump and score as many headers as he does.
It is, yeah. It's one of the wonders of the world, to be honest. I don't know how he does it. I think he's just full of helium or something. He gets above most people, and honestly, it's crazy. But it's really handy to have when you've got a player that doesn't look like an aerial threat that is. I think they get a bit underestimated. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It's important that you have goals from all around the team. I think I heard Neil from the Liverpool McGrath podcast saying on the Villa View, not enough goals from the centre backs, really. I would like to see us get 2 or 3, from set pieces or something. And because, all these goals can make a difference. If you win a game, probably likely to get those sort of goals against the bigger teams, set pieces, when you try and target that. If you get 3 extra points from that, it could be the difference between, where we are now, we'd be in the top half. And, it's the fine margins. We all keep saying they're important. But yeah, it is nice to have a share of goals. And when I wrote my article last night, then published it today, I said, that I said basically, like with Emery, we're used to now seeing bodies behind the ball, but then we spring forward and there's bodies in the opposition box. We're pretty box to box all round, and you have to overload the opposition in their, like, outnumber them in their defence, and we tend to do that quite a lot now with how we set up, and it's such a far cry from what we were watching for the first 11, 12 games of the season. It's bizarre. It almost, honestly, the Steven Gerrard era almost feels like a fever dream to me now. Like it didn't actually happen, but it was almost a necessity, because now we've got Emery, and I mean, it still makes me annoyed that where would we be if we had him at the start of the season? But that's not how it works, and we can look forward to the summer when we go through a nice pre-season and the recruitment and young loanees coming back, and it's just an exciting time. And this season's not even over yet, and we are close to those top spots, but we just got to take it a game at a time, and hopefully we see more performances like we did on Saturday.
Yeah, it's tantalisingly close, isn't it? For obviously the table doesn't lie. All we see is 11th week in, week out, and it is a bit disheartening. I get some fans that it just feels like we could play for 10 years and still be 11th, but remember, we're looking down below us. That was us, and if we'd have kept Gerrard, we'd be where Bournemouth would be. I'm certain of it. Maybe even worse off if we'd have kept Gerrard for the rest of the season. That's not on the players, it's just on the way we were playing and the way it was going. So while obviously it looks a bit, oh great, 11th still, it feels like we're going to win whenever Chelsea win, draw whenever Chelsea win, lose whenever Chelsea draw, and that'll just be that for us. But I quite enjoy it, because while we're not going up in the table, as I say every week, I'm enjoying the football. We're out of any danger, and you could just sort of not point and laugh, maybe at Bournemouth, but sort of watch and enjoy it a bit more. And I've become myself. I feel myself becoming a better football fan for it, because I can sort of enjoy games without thinking how it impacts us so much. And look, I try not to touch on him too much because it upsets me too much. But Steven Gerrard, you were mentioning there. Look, it's a weird like sort of link. But when I was younger, I think a lot of people remember this. Remember when swine flu was a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got it right when I was a kid, and I remember being led in bed, and I started like going all spaced out and like hallucinating, and like my mind thought I was in a desert, and like the animals from Madagascar were in the far distance, walking slowly towards me. That is Steven Gerrard's managerial regime at Villa Park this season to me. That's how it felt. I was so distant, but I was there. But now I'm thinking about it, I know I wasn't there. And I wasn't part of it. I had swine flu.
Yeah. But you know what? The Steven Gerrard era was the swine flu era. Yeah, it was horrendous. It really was. the thing was, it was just so repetitive, wasn't it? Every week it was the same old, and there was just moments. I think there was one. Well, yeah. I think there was only one time where everything looked good, and other than the first couple of games where he'd just come in and we had the new manager bounce, it was that the wins against Brighton, Southampton, and Leeds. I thought, maybe he'll be onto something, but when you look back, they were all teams that were just in shocking form at the time. Yeah. Even Brighton, they weren't. I don't think they'd won a game by the time we played them then, and they were struggling. So again, it was never coming together, was it? I think over last summer, I was almost in denial that it was going to fail, even though I knew it would at the same time. I didn't want it to, because we just wasted another year.
Yeah.
Come October, it was a relief that he was gone, and then a week or so later, and we have Emery. It feels like he's been here for a lot longer. He's made that connection between the fans again. He's so appreciative of us, and he always talks about how we have to build the energy between us and the players. And I know that the atmosphere has been a big talking point recently, but being there on Saturday, I don't think it was too bad. My thoughts on it were, I was surrounded by the same sort of people as me that were so encapsulated with trying to figure out what we're doing and enjoying what we're watching, that I wasn't always thinking about chanting, because I was constantly admiring how we were playing, and every good move was clapping. It was really good to watch. And then I think when it got to 2 or 3-0, I think everything feels safe there, and we were just attacking, and that's when the atmosphere ramped up a bit. And I think that's what we're going to get used to. I saw someone liken it to when Arteta first took over at Arsenal. Obviously, I don't think the fans were in the stadium at that point, but when they were back in, it was still a bit iffy. But he's brought this trust back with the fans, and I think they know what they're going to see is good, and they just let the atmosphere flow basically now. And I think that's what we'll see come after a pre-season and start of next season. We know what we're going to be getting, and I think that as long as we start well, I think everything will just fall into place, and the atmosphere will be good again.
Yeah, well, the atmosphere is always a bad. It's not a conversation I love having too much. I'll have it with you, obviously, but it's one I don't get too into debates on online, because one, I'm not a Villa Park much if at all anymore, and two, when I was a season ticket holder, I was through 4 seasons of relegation and the first season of Championship. Now, obviously, in my experience at Villa Park, there's been a atmosphere, but it's never been. Every football fan thinks their home atmosphere is the best. And I've still maintained that I've gone to a lot of different stadiums, and I still think Villa Park holds its own up as one of the best stadiums on its day. But I think it's a bit of a myth to think that it's always been the best atmosphere ever. In the Championship, it was fantastic. And that was because you had, if we're going to be honest, we had less fans go in, but they were the same fans every week. And then you got the atmosphere from the fact that you had Dean Smith and Jack Grealish running the entire team, and we had exciting football being played in the Championship, winning 10 games on the trot. You had the first season Championship where it was quite new and exciting, and we knew we had to bounce back, and then it started getting bad, so we gave it up a bit. And then the last season in the Premier League, where obviously it was just, it was an atmosphere, but one of my mates who's a Southampton fan, he always tells me that he came to Villa Park and to them it looked like a pre-season friendly against the team that was at war with the fans, which is what it was. And I remember being sat there, Joleon Lescott, you look like a goat, and you're not fit to wear the shirt and all of that lot. I love Villa Park, and the atmosphere it can provide is amazing, but I've never been one that thought it's missing something. It is missing something that it had, and I'm interested to see what it can be that sort of flicks the switch on it. I don't think, you were there, obviously, and you might have got a better feel for it, but I know a lot of people are saying that sort of like the ensemble of music beforehand isn't exactly the best, and it sounds kind of petty and corny, but that does change things.
Yeah, I agree. I was sitting there, I think the last 20 minutes to start playing stuff like Bangarang, and they play Crazy Train like 15 minutes early, and I think, if you're going to play Crazy Train, play it when the players are walking out. The whole time before that, let the atmosphere build itself. I don't really like the build up with music. I don't mind, silver lining, but I think that the fans could create a better atmosphere if you give them that space to. But I think in terms of something missing, I don't know if maybe it is that trust that's finally building back between the fans and the team now. I think once that trust is there, when you're not constantly on edge watching they don't make a mistake, I think you then build the atmosphere up again. Because I think when I look back to the Championship, when we weren't good, the atmosphere wasn't the best. But that last 10 games, half of them being at home, the fans knew that they were getting a performance every week. They knew that we could help the team as well. And I think that's how it happened. I think that pushed us on in that run as well. So I think, as I say, I think if you give the fans a reason to trust you, that they'll back you with the support then.
Yeah, I think as well, you've got to think about the fact that obviously the owner was there on Saturday, and the main thought process of any football owner and the higher ups in a football club is the team success, revenue. He's probably gone and seen that and gone, and the officials seen it going, football's good, we're getting results. They're always going to look for what's missing, what next can we do? And they're already doing a stadium expansion. They're already looking at stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if they do start looking at things towards the atmosphere. I just hope it's not a light show, because they're just corny, and that's not going to work. I do wish that they would. I mean, how many times do I have to see people tweeting, stop playing Bangarang before games, before they just see it? There's no way someone hasn't seen that. I mean, and I do urge anyone that's at the ground, if you find any official, just say to the stewards, look, you tell them to stop playing Bangarang. Someone's going to pass the message on to someone, and they might hear it. Because it's just, I don't listen to Bangarang, believe it or not, and I don't know anyone that does.
No.
And it's not it's not a pump up song, it's a loud song. But Joy reminds me of is Sunderland Till I Die, and the bloke who changes the PA system from an old song to drum and bass, and it don't work, and everyone's looking like, what the fuck? And it feels like we just missed those people in the room when someone said we're playing Bangarang to go, what?
I can just picture it in the subtitles. EDM continues.
Oh, poor bloke. Maybe that's where he is.
It's not very inclusive, is it, either? If you're going to play music, at least the High Ho Silver Lining, it has like the inclusivity for the fans, and they have a reason to sing it. Bangarang is just a load of shouting and noises, isn't it? Really,
do you feel like you're going to hear this and be like, God, I sound old? It's just a load of shouting and noises.
I do feel like I'm like 70. It's just too much, I think, and then, as I said, Crazy Train for me, it's just that should be played as they're walking out. That
it baffles me. It's not.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because how it used to be, it's just synonymous when I think about him walking out. So I don't know why they don't do that now. I think a lot of people have the same opinion, that it should be like that. But yeah, I think after hearing a lot about the atmosphere, I was pleasantly surprised in a way about it, because I don't think it was too bad, and I think there was a lot of acceptance of how we played as well. There was one turning point in the game for me, because I'm patient with watching how we play, and a few times in the first half when Martinez got the ball, they wanted him to play out quick, and there was that once where he threw it to Buendia in loads of space in the middle of the park, and he lost it almost straight away, and we had another attack come at us, and I turned to mum and dad and I said, that's why we don't play it that fast. Because we want control. And then I think after that, it almost felt like the fans knew that we don't need to rush. And we didn't after that, really. So, yeah, the only disappointment, well, it's not really disappointment, I don't care about them, but Bournemouth fans were crap. I've heard that they had sung, so I don't think they did. I heard them sing about 3 or 4 times, and it was just quiet. I mean, I know that they're not in the greatest spots, but that's the away support. It should be the best support. So
I don't buy into this. Like, we're not in a good position. We can't, like, what do you expect? Like, what do you then expect your players to do for you if they're not hearing the support? But it's like the biggest myth in football, like booing your own players. Like, it's never going to help, and not backing them is, look, what did you expect? They were just coming to a playground, James. Their playgrounds, Villa Park. I mean, what, they won here twice, isn't it? Twice, 3 times, and it's their playground. They started mentioning the fact that they win well at St Andrews. Don't you dare compare that shithole to Villa Park ever again.
Yeah.
Like, bad
sin.
enough. We've got Ty coming down one week telling all the Villa fans to go home in Birmingham. And now I've got Bournemouth fan TV coming down saying we should be beating teams like these.
Yeah.
Nobody seems to ever just pull these people up in real life and go, look, mate, I'm not gonna lie to you. You just spoke absolute horse shit. And I can't put this out. I'm sorry. No matter how many views it will get me and Villa fans tweeting it, you just look silly. And you'll always be known as the bloke that went, we should be beating Villa, who are 7 places above us in the league, however many points clear, and we support Bournemouth.
Yeah, Bournemouth in it. I don't want to get too stuck on them. I was, as I say, I wasn't really disappointed. It's just surprising. But yeah, I mean, they did have to watch their team get put to the sword. So, but yeah, the playground bit was a bit surprising. Like, I hope they had fun on the swings because it looked terrible for them.
Yeah,
but yeah, the atmosphere, as I say, I was quite happy with it. I think it can be a lot better, but I think it could be a lot worse from considering what we've been through. So, and it's only going to get better with how we're progressing.
Yeah, look, I'm going to take your word for it because, as you can expect, when you're watching live football, you don't really hear much anyway, and what you can hear gets blurred out so much because of possible swearing that you can't really tell who's singing unless it's an overwhelming majority, in which case you can assume that it's the home fans. So, yeah, like I said, it's not a debate I get too much into. I'll start debating when I next go to Villa Park about it, but until then, you're my atmosphere guru, and all the other writer lads that end up going down Villa Park and maybe getting a post match hot dog. Not sure if we know anyone that does that or
yes, Sonny.
But in all seriousness, though, I do want to quickly shout out the fact that obviously we make the pods, but this all did start from a Twitter account and a writers page and a website that a lot of people do write for. James mentioned earlier he published an article today.
Yeah, early morning.
Yeah, you gave us the sneaky preview at like midnight, if I'm right, and then you published it later. I had a nice read with my morning coffee before I went to work, so I quite enjoyed that. And a lot of the lads do write for there. There's loads of us, and I used to do it. I don't do it so much anymore because this is like my baby, and it's all I think about all day and all night of what I could do for it. It's obsessive and it's bad, but honestly, do just go to the faithful Twitter account. Follow all the lads that write for them. You'll just get so many good articles for free. And some certain athletic people may even steal some people's ideas from there. Maybe, who knows? I can't say anything because there might be a lawsuit. So
yeah, there are a bunch of good lads, and Harry does our thumbnails for us and edits some videos, and yeah, as I say, good bunch of lads. It'd be great if we can all meet up at some point for a Villa game or something, but that's tough in itself. But yeah. I wanted to move on to because I said to you the other night I wanted to touch on the Villa women, how well they're doing. They got into the semi-finals, I think it was, of the FA Cup. They're doing so well this season. The recruitment's been really good. They're fifth in the table, 6 points behind Arsenal in fourth, but they've got a game in hand. They're just and Rachel Daley, what a signing that's been. She is incredible, and they've surrounded some of the good players already got with experienced talent. We've got Jordan Nobbs in as well, and Kenzie Daley, and there's some talented players there. And you think this is another big part of us growing as a club. Not just our academy that we're the inner city academy that we're building, and the affiliates that we might be getting abroad. The women's team as well are pushing up the table, and it's really good exposure all round, and we should be really proud of them.
Yeah, and it's more Villa, it's more football. It's a growing market, and that's quite exciting for a lot of Villa fans as well. And like I said, to further our inclusivity as well as a club, it's the way football is moving, and all for good reasons as well. So it's always more exciting as well when that part's doing well as well. I know I completely agree with you. It's good to touch on it because we can get so caught up in like there's so much to talk about with Villa, and there's so much you can we could spend probably half an hour here talking about one Villa starting 11 player, but it's only fair that for example the women's team do get a shout out because like you're saying that they're playing some great stuff, and like I said, to be in the position they're in as well is nothing short of fantastic. So no, it's good. It's good to talk about it. I think
it is, yeah. Because I know it's not everyone's cup of tea still, and it's still a growing part of the game. But it's come on leaps and bounds. And I remember watching a Villa women's game a couple of seasons ago, and the difference from then till now is incredible. And you got to give some props to Carla Ward as well. She's doing a really good job, and the team looks really good. I think that it's really good quality, and I think obviously they play at Villa Park. Sometimes they play at Best Scotland Cup games, and I'm not sure whether it's in league games as well. Sometimes they're quite accessible if you're in the area. But yeah, if anyone ever had some free time and they see that the Villa women are on TV, I think that they play on the FA Player as well, the FA Player app. You can watch WSL games if you're ever free and fancy watching. I would urge you to, because it's a lot better than what I think some people think. And as I said, I understand it's not for everyone yet, but it's really, really developing well, and the club have done a really good job of pushing the women's team on and putting more money into it. And I think they like to connect the women's and men's team now and again as well. Try and bridge that, because I mean, you can only imagine the sort of help that Emery could give to someone like Carla Ward and how to progress. I mean, as I said, it's different kinds of games, but the principles are the same, aren't they? So yeah, I'm really happy that they're doing well. And as I say, Rachel Daley, absolutely incredible player.
Yeah, and like you mentioned with the sort of combining of the two teams, you're seeing it a lot, especially on Villa socials. I mean, it was it the Inner City Youth Development they went to visit? And like to take both the women's and men's star players is quite important, because you see so many that it's just there's a bloke from the bloke senior team, but to sort of get that out there, it's sort of a really good message as well to all the young girls that are looking to go into football, that they can see that the teams themselves are actually portraying them as equal to the men's players, because that's the only way it's ever going to evolve, is if it does. And like you said, a lot of people do sort of turn their nose up at it. It's not the same. I'm not going to sit here and preach to anyone that it is the same. I'm not going to sit here and preach to everyone that I watch every women's football game, but it's important that you do watch if you can, because the only way that they're ever going to grow is by more viewership, because at the end of the day, that is the way that they look at things, and that's the way they get a lot of money, is from sponsors who want the viewing figures from it. And, Sky are pushing it more. Clubs are bringing it forwards more, and I think it's no damage to the game at all, and it can only be better for us. And for football clubs as well, you need to have a global image and a whole image, and football clubs are not just seen as their base starting 11 anymore, and it's just not the way the world's going. So it's good to see that we're on the right track for that. And you want to have a football club that you're proud of, not just a football team. And I'm glad we're going that way, because there was, like I said, it was hard the past couple of years. Things were feeling a bit different after Smith's left, and the club didn't seem the right way. And we're slowly, not even really slowly, we're just, it feels like we're getting it back, and it's becoming a family club. And people turn their nose up at that, but you don't become a massive club without being a family club. Half of your fans are going to be women and children. It's just the way it is. And you want to have somewhere that you want to take your kids to and bring them up around, and not just gone are the days of going and just taking my son to football to watch the men's team. It's just not the way, and that's good.
I mean, like, for me, I think watching the women's Euros last summer, obviously I've got 2 daughters now. At the time I'd only got one. Didn't rob one. That sounded a bit odd.
I'd only collected one.
Would have picked another one up. But I my not quite 3-year-old daughter at the time, and I thought, it's a big moment, because she's starting to understand, well, not understand, but notice football a lot more. Like with me watching it, she knows that I support the Villa, and she'll say up the Villa. And it's, as I say, I like to think that it's progressing enough that if that's something that she wants to pursue when she's older, with things like the inner city academy at the Villa, it's a possibility that she could get into that. And as it's a growing game, as you said, the demand for it is what's going to fund it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope it does keep growing as it is. And there was I think a bill a couple of weeks ago. The government, they're going to I think make schools basically make football available for both boys and girls, and that's important because they all need access to it, and we have a bit of a problem with access to football pitches in this country anyway. I think so. That's another thing that needs funding. But yeah, as I say, it's just really good to see that the women's side are growing as much as the men's and the academies. So it's all looking rosy in B6 at the moment.
It is. I agree, and sadly, moving away from B6 as we are for a week, the internationals are coming up. Will I be ranting about Gareth Southgate? No. I'll moan though. Look, I'm not a fan. I've made that clear many times. I'm not a fan of the football. I'm not a fan of the way that he approaches certain interviews and the way he talks, mainly because I like my managers to have a bit of sort of
charisma.
Maybe charisma. Oh, look at that. Came straight out of my head. Look at that. Yeah. The squad list got announced. For those of you that have missed it or not been paying attention, I'll be honest, I am used to not paying attention to this. But I was just interested because not just for me either. It's going to sound very biased, but I was also interested for James Ward-Prowse, a player that's playing for a team that's rock bottom, but he's playing out of his skin. Now, when you're seeing players like James Ward-Prowse, Ollie Watkins, Tyrone Mings not get into the squad. Now, Ollie Watkins is one I'll sort of admit fair enough because his main competition was Ivan Toney, and Tony's had pretty much the same, if not a better season than him. So that's fair enough. Like clearly the FA investigation's gone a certain way of which that they can bypass that and let him play for England, which I think is good because you want your best players playing for your country. That's not a problem. But I mean, watching Mark Gay and
Lewis Dunk, Levi Colwell, they should have been in the squad as well.
I think his comments of saying the way it's going is worrying. We may need to go into the Championship and lower league. First of all, you should never turn your nose up and go into the Championship for players. They've done it before, and they will do it. I mean, David Nugent went into the national team.
He should have picked Grealish when we were in the Championship. He picked Phillips when they'd only just been promoted and he'd not played in the Premier League.
Yeah, well, that was the same. It was exactly in his. The problem, my main problem with him is he's not a man of his word. He makes up things in his interviews to account for mistakes he knows that he's chose not to do because of personal gripes. I'm never going to sit there and think that he loves Villa because he clearly doesn't. It's clearly personal because you can't tell me it's not, because his reasonings for not picking the likes of Grealish, Watkins and Mings have all gone out the window because he's then picked similar players or even Grealish when it's not worked out the same. They've got to be playing consistent club football. They do that. They've got to be playing at a higher level. Grealish wasn't doing that when he was in the Championship, but neither was Phillips, as you mentioned, but he got picked. The problem is whether they're on good form or playing or not, you've got to remember the player they are. So now we don't need to be playing every single week and scoring loads of goals. We just got to be known for being a good player. Look, just admit it, right? You don't really know entirely what you're doing. You just pick players that you know will perform for you, and you pick players that you know like you as a bloke, because you're worried that the likes of Tyrone Mings is going to come in and go, lads, he ain't got a fucking clue, has he? I'm getting, but he's a fool to think that they all love him that much, because they must go back to their clubs, go back to Pep, and go back to even Eric Ten Hag or even Arteta and go, fucking hell. So this is how a proper manager works then, back here. Because my word, while we all may be swimming on fucking unicorn dinghies in swimming pools and having the time of our lives, the football we play is utter garbage. And I'll never hear anything against it. We do not play good football as a national team. I do not like international breaks. They shouldn't be held during seasons. I don't care. Why do we even play qualifiers at this stage? Like, surely we can stop playing qualifiers and just go, right, these teams are always fucking in it. It's only once every 4 years does a team not, like, obviously that's when the World Cup's held, but it's only one team every 4 years that doesn't could go in, like Italy last year, for example. And everyone's like, that's shocking. Well, okay. That doesn't make sense. I'm just angry, all right? I'm thinking about it. I can see him in his waistcoat smiling at me, and I don't like it. I really don't like it.
You know, I think that this will be we'll move on to this, I think, maybe in another video during the break, because I'll actually shock you with my views on Southgate, and we'll actually have a debate on it. So
not now, we won't.
No, because we'll go on forever, because I agree with some parts and also disagree with some parts, and that's quite exciting because we don't usually do that. So we'll leave that for another video. But I agree. I think Watkins can feel aggrieved that he wasn't part of the squad, and I think especially because Rashford's dropped out. I think it was yesterday as well, but he hasn't called Watkins up. But
no, he's made James Maddison a forward.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it's a bit odd, isn't it? But it almost screams is going to be 3 at the back with 2 midfielders again, but we'll see. Mings can also feel aggrieved, but I think, in my opinion, Duncan Colwell could feel even more aggrieved because they've been brilliant all season, whereas obviously Ty was still... I mean, he was still performing really well under Gerrard. He was one of our best players, but at the same time, they were still shipping goals, so you can understand that in a sense. I'm not too bothered that they haven't been picked because it keeps me around Bodymore Heath. I wouldn't have minded if a couple more of them hadn't been picked, because I don't like international breaks at this time of the season in this running.
No.
But yeah, it is a boring time. I don't really like the friendlies and the qualifiers. I love the tournaments, and Southgate always plays the friendlies and the qualifiers exactly how he wants to play tournaments, which is pragmatic, which is boring to watch during qualifiers. But I understand why he does it. That's the thing. But when it comes to the squad list released, I'm almost a bit bored of it now, because there's always going to be players that I think probably should have been in.
Yeah.
And I understand that he's going to have some favourites because he trusts them, and it's sort of that culture in the camp. But at the same time, if there's 2 or 3 favourites that don't really offer much on the pitch, it feels a bit pointless. And you need to blood that the younger players that are going to be integral in, say, 2026. They need tournament experience. So yeah, it's going to be. I'm interested to see the younger English lads, to be honest. Watching Tim, Archer, Aaron, for example, and see how they do, because I think their games are usually televised as well. Yeah. So that's where my excitement is, watching Cam score a hat-trick 3 times this week, or however many times they play. So yeah, we just got to get through this next 2 weeks now.
Yeah, I don't call it 2 weeks. Just say week and a bit for me. Everyone always says 2 weeks. It upsets me because I can't. Don't ever call it 2 weeks. It's a week and a bit. All right.
11 days.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. Even better. I do. Honestly, I've been thinking of even talking to the wife over the weekend. That's how little sports on. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? I've got to do something in my days, not just sit my ass on the sofa and just watch sport all day. I'm sure there will be stuff on, but I might pick up a new cricket obsession. Maybe that's on.
I don't mind a bit of cricket. It depends. I'll watch any sort of sport if it's on and I've not got anything to do. Genuinely, F1, rugby, cricket, and obviously football. Anything really. I'm a sports kind of guy. Yeah,
I'll find something to do anyway. Maybe I'll start talking to real people, not just you over the internet. No, I agree with you. The thing is I hate international breaks mainly because it seems to be obviously your best players leave, but it's the case of why has it got to be now when we're starting to pick up a bit of pace? We win what 3 out of our last 4, is it? We're on a bit of a run. I just don't want to be stopped. I don't want to stop watching Villa, and I think we'll touch on it next week in next week's little pod. But we got some chatting to do about Cameron Archer and about the boys on loan, I think, because there'll be a video hitting everyone's sub boxes this week that we recorded last week on our Keep Loan Sell, which I'm looking forward to releasing. So that'll be good. That's all ready to go. I think we'll get that uploaded by the end of the week, and Obviously, you'll know this because this will come out first.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
As is beautiful. Well, that'll be that for this week. There's no singing outro. I do apologise, James. I feel like you might have been expecting a little one.
Emery, mate.
You can tell he's been down Villa Park, can't you?
Yeah.
Well, as always, you're gonna tap the like button. You're gonna tick all the notifications one. But you're gonna absolutely smash the subscribe button. And of course, obviously, if you're listening on Spotify, make sure to follow, get the notifications on so you get notified for every new episode getting released. Because as we say every week, we don't know when we're releasing this. We just kind of play it by ear. One day we'll have a schedule, but today nearly didn't happen because somebody couldn't get their camera to work, and we just looked like a Green Day poster you were saying, sort of.
Yeah, you did.
Very monochrome, wasn't it?
Yeah, it just all of a sudden went really dark, and it was just shadow and white. It just looked like something very gothic.
Yeah, and again, I'm not in that type of mood, to be honest. Maybe next week when we talk about Gareth Southgate, I'll keep the camera that way.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that debate as well, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, we're not going to talk after this podcast now, by the way. We're just going to end the call and that'll be that. Beautiful stuff. Well, as always, obviously, check the description for all of the socials for me, James, Harry, and the rest of the boys. But until next time, up the Villa.
Up the Villa.